Some people find it concerning when a minority group becomes too successful. The false belief that different groups would be equally represented and successful in all human endeavors, if it weren't for some form of injustice, fuels envy and conspiracies to justify persecuting minorities. This phenomenon has occurred against many different groups throughout the world. Peter Bauer writes that in the past, a politics of envy has led to the persecution and expulsion of ethnic minorities, particularly those which have achieved prosperity from poverty, such as the Jews in Europe, Levantines and Indians in Africa, and the Chinese in Southeast Asia. Walter E. Williams points to a relatively recent example of this envy toward successful minorities, which resulted in the expulsion en masse of some 50,000 Asians from Uganda in 1972 by the dictator Idi Amin. When minority groups are disproportionately successful in some industry or endeavor, they are sometimes described as controlling that industry and taking more than their fair share. Thomas Sowell writes that the Chinese have long faced persecution in Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia because, despite being a small percentage of the population, they controlled more of the nation's industries. But the Chinese didn't come in and take over these industries from the native population. They created these industries in the first place, and they would likely not exist otherwise. He writes that it is no more strange that most of the capital in Indonesia belongs to the Chinese than it is that most of the feathers in the world belong to birds. That is where feathers originate.